craving something all the time comes from a mindset of can't have. So if you're thinking like, I can't have this because it's going to do X, Y, and Z, then you're going to constantly be thinking about it, craving it. And for me, when I've lifted that can't have, like, oh, I really want that cookie, so I'm going to have that cookie and move on with my day.
This is the Home of Healthspan podcast, where we profile health and wellness role models, sharing their stories and the tools, practices, and routines they use to live a lively life. Hannah, also known as Lovely Delights on all the channels. It is such a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I really like your approach because it's not just about eating healthy, but it's about having a healthy relationship with food. Mm-hmm. And you came to that realization of its importance and living that way in a pretty personal and honest way. Can you say a little more about what that was?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, my story started from a young girl. I think like most women in that young adolescent age, especially, 10, 15 years ago, having a certain body type, having a certain diet, we idolized these unrealistic body standards. So that's kind of where my unhealthy relationship with food kind of developed at a very young age. I was like, oh, looking at magazines, you can lose 10 pounds in 2 weeks and, following the Special K diet, doing all those things. So it started at a really young age. And I'll say that it kind of cleared up like in my early 20s. I really dedicate that to therapy. I dived into therapy and that really helped me heal my relationship with my body, my mind, things that had happened in childhood. And I think from there, it healed my relationship with food because it cleared my mind. It cleared me being able to have control over my actions, my decisions. And now I can say that I have a total healthy relationship with food. I don't look at it as good and bad. I don't look at it as guilt food. Everything is just food in essence. And it's really been such a game changer.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you said 15 years ago what the pressures were and what you're dealing with. And I'm thinking 15 years ago, we didn't have Instagram and we didn't have TikTok. And so we didn't have 10, 11, 12-year-olds constantly scrolling, looking at this. And every now and then there'd be a magazine or they'd see it on TV. But to the extent it's pushed now, I can only think how much more important the work you're doing to help support others to build that healthy relationship is.
Yeah, no, my heart goes out to kids, in their teens at this day and age, because I remember when Instagram came about, I was waitressing. I think I was 17. So I wasn't in, that 13, 14 stage when your mind is really developing and you're starting to compare and contrast with, other people. And when it's constantly in your face, I can't imagine, living in this day and age as an adolescent.
Yeah. And so you had your unhealthy relationship and then this path to get to a healthy relationship. What does that mean to you? What does that look like?
For me, I practice intuitive eating and I've really mastered it in a sense that I don't look at food as a number. I don't count macros. I don't count calories. I don't weigh myself. I haven't in probably the better of 10 years.
Can I ask, was that part of therapy where they're saying, hey, you need to get away from the micro measurement and just live? Okay.
Absolutely. I'm such a huge advocate for therapy. I'm like that annoying friend amongst my friends and family. I'm like, hey, you really should do therapy because it really changed my life in so many ways. But I will say, like, for those that, maybe listening that might have an unhealthy relationship with food, sometimes it's not even about the food, it's about something else. So when you really dive into, your core self, you'll be amazed at what, transpires after that.
So I'm curious on the healthy side, because you said you eat intuitively. And there have been a few times I interview guests, and maybe it's on their fitness regimen, and kind of ask, and they might be dancers or really, really in tune with their bodies. And say, oh, I listen to my body. What does my body need? What does it not need? And same with you, intuitive food. For those of us like me who might not be that intuitive, right? The gym would just grind out and then end up getting hurt. Or with food, I listen, I have a super sweet tooth.
Mhm.
And after each meal might have two desserts
Mhm.
for years. And from the outside, because I work out so much, it didn't look unhealthy. But then when I got my glucose levels and my A1C, like, oh, you're actually starting to get pre-diabetic and this is dangerous. And so for me, my intuition apparently is not very good in terms of helping me stay healthy.
Right.
Where's that line for people who might not have dialed in? Oh
Mm.
yeah, actually, I crave salt now because I'm maybe low on electrolytes. I need good electrolytes. I maybe crave this now because I need iron because of where I am in my cycle,
Mhm.
whatever it is. How do you recommend people do that?
I think I can only speak from personal experience because I don't
Of
have,
course.
like the background. But like for me, I think, the craving something all the time comes from a mindset of can't have. So if you're thinking
Mm,
like, I can't have this because it's going to do X, Y, and Z, then you're going to constantly be thinking about it, craving it. And for me, when I've lifted that, can't have like, oh, I really want that cookie. So I'm going to have that cookie and move on with my day.
yeah.
And I think it with like nutrition, it's not about what you take out of your diet, it's about what you put in. So have the cookie and then maybe have, I know cookie and salad doesn't sound like the best combo, but maybe have something to balance that out so you're not just doing the cookie and moving like feeling guilty about it. Add something into that diet or that meal and then you'll feel more satiated and you'll feel, more emotionally happy because you had both.
That definitely resonates. That's one thing I try to encourage people in not just taking out, but thinking, hey, what am I going to put in? So if you're getting 700 grams of plants, and so
Mm-hmm.
that could be 3 apples, that could be whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
plus a gram of protein per kilo,
Mm-hmm.
right? That you've covered your bases, and
Right.
then you can have the flexibility. And by the way, if you're doing that, you're probably not super, super hungry to eat a ton of cookies. Maybe you just
Right.
have the one, and that's totally fine because
Right.
you've gotten
Yeah.
the rest
Oh,
settled.
absolutely. I remember like because I have a huge sweet tooth too. I'm sure you can tell from my page.
Yeah, your page is amazing.
Lots of sweets, but then also like making sweets that are unprocessed sugar, more natural whole food ingredients that still taste really good, but you're
Yeah.
not going to have that like high and then that crash. You actually eat it and you feel good and energized and not like low in an hour or so.
Yeah, that is something I only recently came to the long, not even that long term effect. I was driving back from my daughter's birthday one year, and I'd had a big old slice of cake, and I was falling asleep because the crash was
Yeah,
real. It was serious.
right. Yeah.
So what does day to day look like for you in terms of nutrition? So when you're eating intuitively, do you still think about, hey, this is the kind of stuff I want to stock the fridge with so that over the course of the day, over the course of the week, these are what my kinds of meals look like?
Yeah, no, totally. So, I mean, I think I have kind of a unique approach because I am a food blogger. So, my recipes that I make are geared around, what I'm going to be posting or what I'm going to be putting on my website. But when it comes to like myself and my nutrition, I always make sure I have supplies and whole foods to make like a smoothie because I love my protein smoothies like after my workout. I make sure I have some like cottage cheese and Greek yogurt for a quick savory snack or for like a sweet snack. You can mix it up and do either
Yeah.
or. And then just making sure I have like quick and handy, like high protein snacks on hand, like a meat stick or like a really clean, like protein bar. And then aside from that, I just kind of like sometimes if I have like a meal plan, like this is what I make, but I'm craving something different, like then I'm going to do what I'm craving because that's going to make me feel more satisfied.
Yeah. And you don't fall into don't imagine a pink elephant
Yeah,
scenario where, of course, immediately you're thinking about that.
exactly.
So you mentioned protein several times in that. That sounds like something you're really thoughtful on. Is there a target you're trying to get a certain amount in a day? or how do you think about your protein intake?
Not necessarily, because I don't count the macros.
Right.
But with this year, I've been doing like really hard, not hard, but like just focused workouts for the last 3 or 4 years. Just
Okay.
really paying attention to that, because prior I didn't put that at forefront, and now
Okay.
I realize how it makes me feel. I feel so much better. I feel much energized. I'm more confident. So this year, I really wanted to focus on my protein intake and see how that changes. And it actually makes me feel so much better when I have high protein meals. I feel more satisfied. I'm not hungry. I'm not reaching for those sweet snacks throughout the day, because I don't want them. I'm not craving them. I know that they're there if I do want them, but I'm not craving them anymore because I'm so satiated throughout the day. So focusing on the high protein has been a real big game changer for me.
And you said the protein in your smoothie, do you use a protein powder with that?
I do use a protein powder. Sometimes I'll throw in some cottage cheese. Like this morning, my shake was bananas, blueberries, protein powder. I use Ritual, which is like my
Okay.
favorite, best tasting in my opinion. And then I threw in some cottage cheese, some PB Fit, which is high protein powdered peanut butter, and it tastes like a blueberry cheesecake smoothie. It's so good.
Sounds delicious.
And, like I said, I don't count macros, but it's so funny because, when I post things, I get so many questions. So this morning I actually went through and I was like calculating it. It was 44 grams of protein for that shake.
Oh, wow.
I was like, that's
Yeah.
actually awesome. I've never really, paid attention to that, but I feel like that kind of goes with the intuitive. Like I'm adding things that are whole foods. I know I like, I'm just throwing it in there and it tastes really good. And in turn, it's actually, high in protein and pretty good.
Yeah. Giving your body what you need. But
Exactly.
besides protein, are there any other things, since you're not counting
Right.
macros, so I imagine you're not counting micros,
No.
are there any other supplements you take saying, hey, I might be low in these certain things, so I add those as supplements?
Yeah. So my supplements are pretty simple. I take a multivitamin, again, from Ritual, just to cover my bases. And then I take a vitamin C, Lipsol, like a liquid vitamin C from Brain ND. I've taken that. It's just like 2 tablespoons a day for the last 6 or 7 months, and I have not been sick once. So I am like, okay, this is, really working for me, because even like traveling and long hours and stress, like I haven't been sick, and I normally get sick. So that's been like amazing. And then I also take a liquid collagen for the last 6 months, which I really love. And aside from that, those are my supplements. Pretty simple.
The collagen, do you take straight? Do you put it in your smoothies?
I take straight. Yeah, it's 2 tablespoons a day. And since it's just me drinking it, I pour it into the cup and just drink it back. It doesn't really taste like much, but I've noticed, a really big difference in my skin, my hair. Yeah,
Your
nails, all
nails.
the
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Throughout the course of a day,
Mhm.
what is your eating schedule like? So you kind of mentioned a breakfast, you mentioned snacks, you mentioned, I assume, like a lunch and dinner.
Right. So how my day starts is, I wake up, I usually will drink a glass of warm lemon water. And
Okay.
then I'll take my dogs for a walk. I'll come back. I'll go to the gym. But sometimes I'm hungry. So it depends on the day. Sometimes I'm like starving and I can't get through this workout. So I'll make a couple eggs or something to get me through it. Then I'll come home and I'll make a protein shake. I'll do that every single day, kind of similar to the one that I explained. And then it just depends on the day. So whether if I'm filming that day, recipe testing, or if I'm doing like a computer day, it kind of just depends. When I'm recipe testing, I'll make sure I have like a hearty breakfast. So like some eggs, some sausage, some turkey bacon. And then like throughout the day, I'm kind of just like snacking on the recipes, trying them out, tasting them. So I'm not really hungry. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then I'll end the day with like a really good meal, like some salmon, some chicken breast, a pasta. It just depends
Yeah.
on the day. But I do make sure that everything is like well balanced, and I'm making sure I'm, eating those satiating meals.
And when you need those little top ups, you mentioned meat sticks or
Yeah.
good clean protein bars. Do you have any go tos on those?
I really like Chomps in Country Archer. Theirs is like grass fed, and then they also have like liver in their meat sticks as well, which
Okay.
is a really nice bonus. And then other like snacks, sometimes like a granola bar. But sometimes like when I'm recipe testing the desserts. Like you said, when you eat that piece of cake, you're like, oh, I need something like, I'm like, oh, I need something like savory. So like I'll
Yeah.
munch on a meat stick and then I'll feel better.
You can get oversweetened for
Oh
sure.
yeah. Yeah.
And so you mentioned your workouts, and especially this year, taking the fitness
hmm
aspect more seriously. Not that you weren't doing it before.
Right.
Uh, what was it that made you realize you wanted to get more into that?
I think that I used to look at working out as like a chore, something that I had to
Mm,
do to, reach a certain weight. And then when I started finding workouts that like I really enjoyed, I do strength training and then sometimes circuit training. I really enjoy it, and now I look forward to doing them because when I leave the gym, I'm feeling so much better about myself. My mind feels clear. So this year, I really wanted to make sure I hit that 3 or 4 minimum workouts per week and not just like doing it like, oh, I have the time, but actually making it a priority.
finding what you're looking forward to doing is 90% of the battle. I equate it for people. It's like you ate black licorice once and you say, oh, I don't like candy. Like, well,
Mhm.
actually, candy has all sorts of varieties. So maybe
Right.
you ran for a month and you hated it, but you didn't try swimming or a class or yoga or Peloton, right? There are infinite ways to do this. And
Oh yeah.
it sounds like once you found, oh, it's this combination of strength training. So what does that look like? So 3 or 4 days a week.
I love lifting weights. So I do like weight training. Like one day I'll do arms, the next day I'll do legs. I follow an app because if I didn't, I would go in the gym. I'd have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Which one?
It's called Evolve You. It's from Chrissy Sealaw. I've
Okay.
used for workouts since I was in high school. And it's
Okay.
just something that I love how easy they are. They're approachable. People ask me like, how do you like go into the gym and you're working out like in front of everyone? You're not in the corner. It's like, well, when you know what you're doing, like you go in like feeling confident. Like aside from that, I mean, I wouldn't be like, how does this machine work? But I think, it's finding something that works for you. This works for me and I really enjoy it. And I love, like feeling myself get stronger from week to week. It's like last week I did 10 pounds. This week I can do 15 pounds like with an
It's a
ease. And
big
I'm like,
jump
oh wow, like that's awesome. So it's like, seeing that progression it makes you feel really good as well.
for sure. And when you're traveling, because you mentioned you're on the road and everything,
Yeah.
how do you do that? Do you have anything you travel with, bands or anything to?
No, not necessarily. If it's like a fun vacation, I really don't push myself to work out. I kind of give
Yeah.
myself, the break. But if it's like something that I'm like needing, like, oh, I need this, like I'll go on a walk or I don't travel with any type of workout bands
Mhm.
or anything like that. But if there's like a gym at the hotel, I was in San Francisco last month. I utilized that gym like a couple days out of the week. So it really just depends. But I think that kind of goes back to me not putting too much pressure on myself. Like even with like following the app, I'm very like, I love to make sure I cross things off. Like I want to make sure I don't miss a day. And I was putting so much pressure on myself that like, oh no, I have to go. And then I'd be like so stressed out because I didn't have enough time in the day or anything like that. So now I don't put so much pressure on it. If I miss a day, it's okay. That workout is going to be there for me
Yeah.
tomorrow, and it all is well.
And you mentioned some walks. Do you do any other kinds of cardio that you mix in there or other kinds besides just the weight training?
Yeah, no, just walks. And then cardio's not my favorite thing. I don't love it. But sometimes, on my workout plan, I'll have like sprints, which sprints are
Okay.
doable for me because you get like a little break and it kind of goes by fast. But I don't enjoy like the long haul cardios. Like I used to do the Peloton, and I feel like that's when I was like starting to hate working out because I was like, I do not like this high cardio for an hour. It's not for me.
Yeah.
It's not for me.
I'm so happy and grateful you're sharing this so clearly, right? Because you're trying these things and saying, okay, everybody hears about Peloton all the time or running or whatever the thing
Right.
is. And so they think that is what exercise is
Mhm.
and hate it.
Yep.
And as a result, may or may not do it. But the point is, you went and you found, and you say, okay, I don't have to do this thing. I can do this other thing that I actually enjoy. It makes me feel great. This is fantastic. Makes every day that much better.
Yeah, totally. Also, like sometimes, if I miss a workout like 2 or 3 days, I feel like my joints, like my legs, my muscles, like they feel so much sore than when I am working out. So it's like that also makes me feel like, okay, like I need to do this because it makes me feel better. And then when I'm not doing it, I don't feel the best.
Yeah, I mean that. God, it just keeps coming up. You're just really being able to listen
Hmm.
to your body. And
Right.
I guess it's like so much in life that when we quiet the other noise, we're able to hear and read and see those signals that
Exactly.
maybe we're deaf to at other times.
Totally.
With upping your workout to say, hey, it's more intense than it was before. It's more deliberate. Have you seen any impact on your sleep routine and how you sleep as a result?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, my sleep schedule, I have like a do not disturb on my phone. It goes on at 9 o'clock. So after 9 o'clock, if you're calling me, if you're texting me, I'm not responding till the next
Yeah.
day. I don't go on social media until, after my workouts in the next day. I listen to brown noise at night to calm my mind and to go to sleep. And then, yeah, working out, because your muscles are being used, you are more exhausted at the end of the day. So you sleep better and heavier.
Do you notice a difference the days you do work out or don't, or if you haven't worked out in 2 or 3 days? Is it different than?
Yeah. No, it is actually, now I think about it, like sometimes I'll be like up past 11 and I'm like, why am I not tired? Like this is, so that's probably, a big factor into it is that. But I will say with having two puppies, they're so active. So I do get my 2 walks in daily regardless because it's like, okay, you guys are acting crazy. Like we need to get out of the house.
And I imagine, I mean, with what you share, you're up and moving and everything in the
Mhm.
kitchen as well. So it seems like your day to day is probably relatively active regardless.
Yeah, for sure. I have, a very busy schedule, whether it's, admin days or days in the kitchen. It's pretty packed from morning to evening. So I
Yeah.
think, that is also helpful too, because by the end of the night, I'm spent and my mind is spent. And I'm just like, I
Yeah.
just want to relax.
And so what is your ideal, and maybe even less than ideal, your normal sleep routine of, hey, I have my do not disturb on at
Mhm.
9.
Yeah.
I do X, Y, and Z, and then I get to lights out at Y time,
Mhm.
sleep until Z time. What does that look like for you?
So, like, I usually wind down about 9 o'clock, I would say. And then it just depends on the night. Sometimes I'll have some like reading to do with, business side. So I'll do like
Mm-hmm.
some research, looking at different recipes, reading how different things like with baking, it's kind of like a science. So just kind of like studying up on that and like learning that side of things. And sometimes, to be completely honest, I'm like, I just want to sit down in front of the TV and watch some trash TV and some mindless, just rest. And then I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm going to bed. So it depends on the day. I will say some nights I'll do, some self care where I'll wash my face, I'll do a face mask, I'll do some red light therapy. And I notice on the days where I do like the red light therapy, which is like a mask you put on,
Okay.
it helps me actually wind down, like close my eyes. It actually makes me like tired and restful. And I do find like the red light, actually puts me into like a pretty deep sleep pretty quick.
What red light do you use?
It's from Current Body
Okay.
and it's for your face to help, collagen production, which I've noticed such a big difference in my skin. But I've also noticed, that other side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great to get the twofer there and get the
Yeah,
double dip.
right, right.
How many hours would you say you typically get to sleep? I mean, I don't know if you have a tracker. I'm guessing from all the other things of, hey, I'm trying to get away from metrics. You probably don't.
Yeah. Well, I think the phone like automatically tells me you were in bed, this amount of hours. So I do aim for minimum 7, would love to get 8,
Yeah.
but like that's my kind of sweet spot is the 7 to 8 mark. I prioritize sleep a ton. I know I'm not the best person when I don't get a good night's sleep, both physically, like emotionally. Like sometimes I'm just bratty because I'm like, I am exhausted. So sleep is something I like put a huge priority on. I take it very seriously.
Yeah, I was just on a trip with some friends down to Nicaragua, and there's a child kind of having a meltdown, right? A 2 or 3 year old. And you're like, well, probably
Yeah.
tired
Yeah.
or hungry.
Right.
And a friend said, just like the rest of us, right? Like if we're tired or hungry, we're monsters. It's
Exactly.
really, really hard.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so is that more like a 10 to 6 or 11 to 6, depending how late you get up, or what's?
My alarm goes off at 7 every day, regardless. So I, try to be in bed by 10, 11.
Yeah.
Anytime after 11, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to hit that snooze in the morning.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
harder. And do you wear eye masks or anything? Like I found I was super light sensitive. So that for me was a game changer.
Yes, yeah. I'm super light sensitive. Like if there's even like a slightest crack in the curtain and the moon's coming through, I'm like, nope, can't sleep. So I do wear, the eye mask and then I listen to the brown noise because
Right.
I've noticed if it's like too quiet, I'm like, why is it so quiet? And then like any little creak I hear, I'm like, who's in my house? So it's like I just, shut it off and I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And the eye mask, do you have a specific one?
Yes, I think it's called Silk. They're just like silk ones, but I think the brand is called Silk.
Okay. Yeah. That's my go-to is a silk one as
Yeah.
well. I don't think necessarily that brand, but it made a silk, just like a
Oh
big
yeah,
band. It's very comfortable.
so comfy.
One thing that seems to have touched on everything we've discussed so far, and where it really started, is this mindset piece
Mhm.
on the mindset around food of, oh, it's the enemy. I need to try all these different things, or diets, a crash diet, et cetera, versus a mindset of, hey, I can have what I crave and what I need, and thinking through that and give yourself what you need. You mentioned therapy. Do you still go to therapy? I try to equate it for people of, with our diet, we don't think we eat healthy for a year and never have to do it again. With our physical health, we don't think we go to the gym for a month or a year and never have to do it again. And yet somehow with our mental health and mindset, you're like, oh, I can do it, like go to this event or do this thing for a month or a year and then I'm fixed. Like, no, no, no. It's the work of a lifetime, like everything else. I mean, how do you think about that?
Yeah, no, totally. So I was in therapy for 3 years, a little on and off because my therapist went on maternity leave, and so a little on and off, but 3 years. And it got to a point where we were in our meetings, and she's like, "Okay, like what can I help you with today?" And I'm like, like I don't know, like everything's good.
Pretty
I'm,
good.
like, I'm
Yeah.
happy, and like she'd be like, "Okay, well, we don't have, like I'm always going to be here." But it got to a point where I was like, no, like you can't, like we can't not see each other because like what if something happens? What if I need you? And she's like, got to a point where she's like, it's okay, like you're going to be fine. And that was, let's see, probably a year and a half to 2 years ago. But I noticed, I think because I went for so long, when something comes up, I'm able to go through kind of like our sessions where I process things so much differently now, where
Yeah.
I'm able to actually like sit back, okay, why am I feeling like this? What is triggering me? What's causing this? Like I can go through all of the steps without her. So
Yeah.
yeah. But, who's to say that when I'm in the next chapter in my life and we're always evolving, we're always growing, that I might, need to have a few more sessions just to feel better.
We encounter new situations too. I mean, the way you described it to me is a little bit like a child who's just learning to spell or do math. And so
Right.
they'll come to the parent or teacher, say, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do? And you do it. But hopefully through that, child's learning how to spell for themselves or do the math themselves. And so now that you have those tools, say,
Mhm.
oh, hey, maybe I haven't encountered this specific thing, but it's similar to this other thing. And I have the tool to work through on that. And so it's only in the situation that may be more extreme or where
Right.
there hasn't been yet the tool developed. You say, okay, maybe I need this professional kind of coaching to
For sure.
help learn about that tool. Okay.
Absolutely.
Do you have any daily or weekly kind of mindfulness practice otherwise?
Sometimes I'll journal. Like if
Okay.
I've noticed that like, if I get my thoughts out on, I have like my notes pad. I don't really write on paper, but if I get my thoughts out, usually that kind of helps me because especially with running a business, I have a home. There's so much different things that are thrown at you on your day to day. And sometimes I can just be so just anxious and so just in my head that if I'm able to just throw things out on paper, I feel better. I'm like, okay, they're not in my head anymore. I can see them. And now I know, what I need to tackle and so on and so forth.
Yeah, there's good scientific reasoning behind that. It's this idea of just like a computer has RAM, we have our short-term memory. And if our brain's worried about something, it won't let it go. We can't bring new things in. We can't process. We can't problem solve. We can't because it's just running. But as soon as we physically put it down, the brain say, oh, okay, it's
Yeah.
taken care of. Like I believe in it. I'll clear that space for these other things. And
Right.
so it's I guess just one of those tools, right? You've
Oh yeah.
developed over time.
The mind is so powerful. I like so believe in like also the placebo effect because I think if you really truly believe something, like it's gonna happen. So I'm like, yeah, the mind is the most powerful tool you have, which is why you really need to take care of it because it's like the forefront of your whole life.
Yeah. And to take care of it, you have to think how you're fueling it and how you're resting it and how you're doing all these other pieces, right?
So many moving parts and just with like the social media aspect too, it's like if you're following someone who makes you feel really bad about yourself, then they're also like they're trying to inspire you, influence you, but if it's not resonating, like don't follow
Yeah.
that person. You need to be having people in your group that you're seeing they're constantly being refreshed on things that actually make you feel good and not that make
Yeah.
you feel worse about yourself.
That really clicks with why we approach this show the way we do of profiling such different people that are role modeling and inspiring in their own way, right? It could be the vegan that follows this path. It could be the carnivore that follows this path. It could be the mindset coach that goes this way and showing that there's not a single route to living with vitality and vibrancy, right? It's like finding the right exercise for you. It's
Yeah.
finding that right life model
Mhm.
for you that's going to fit, that you're going to stick to, that you're going to enjoy, because this is the one shot we have. So we might as well enjoy
Oh,
it.
absolutely. And it's, funny you say that because when I started my page 6 years ago, I was vegan. I did vegan for like 8 months and it was something that I shared on my page. I gained like a really big vegan following. And then when I started realizing that I wasn't feeling good on the vegan diet and I was going to start transitioning to pescatarian and then I went into like the animal protein diet. I was so afraid of what my followers were going to say. They're going to judge me. They're going to think I'm a fraud. But being able to like live my truth, live my purpose, like, even I still have a big vegan following because, I still make vegan recipes, but I think
Yeah.
people are inspired by being able to grow and adapt and not hold judgment on that because we're not the same people as, the years go by. So that's totally okay to, change direction. And it kind of goes with, who you're following as well at the same time.
For sure. And that authenticity you talk about, that if the whole idea your way is, look, nothing necessarily is off limits, right? If I'm spending all my time thinking about barbecue, then that's going to be really hard.
Yeah.
But even for the feeling side of bodies need different things
Mm-hmm.
at different seasons of life
Yeah.
and seasons of the year and everything like that. So just really being in tune and responsive to that. You said you take the dogs on a couple walks a day.
Mm-hmm.
Are those set times or are you able to realize, oh man, I've been kind of grinding for a little while. I need a break. Let me get outside with the dogs.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah. So like, especially on my like long computer days where I'm sitting down for 8+ hours, I'll be like, okay, I need a break, not just from, the screen, but I need to like stand up and like move my body.
Yeah.
So usually it's in the morning, like right when I wake up, it's either before the gym or after the gym, which is like a good, pre warm up for me. And then it also
Yeah.
like, just gets the dog's mind out of the way. But, sometimes it's 3 walks where, I'm midday and I'm like 3 o'clock where I'm like, I need to go out, and then again in the evening. So it just, yeah, it depends on how I'm feeling. And then, what these crazy puppies are up to.
What kind of dogs?
I have a mini golden doodle and a Doberman. They're both
Okay.
under 8 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So on the fifth pillar of health, right,
Mhm.
it is around this idea of social connection and purpose. And I think we started this a lot with your purpose of, hey, here was my journey on building this healthy relationship.
Mhm.
And through the content that you're creating and sharing, you're helping others build that healthy relationship and modeling what that healthy relationship can look like. The flip side is you work really hard, right? Like you're a
Mhm.
business owner, you're constantly having to create new content to keep feeding you. You got your own house, you got the dogs that are under 8 months that you're
Yeah.
having to deal with. How are you able, or are you able to build in that social connection with in real life with people and that kind of engagement?
Yeah, it's hard. I just recently was thinking about this over the last, few weeks. Like I have my core group of like girlfriends that we've known, like I've known from high school. And
Yeah.
when we all get together, because we're all, living our busy lives, some have kids, some don't. It's like we plan something like 4 to 5 months out in advance. And we're like, this is when we're hanging out. But like I have other friends too, that, want to hang out during the week. And I was thinking, I was like, I hate being that busy person. I hate being like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't. Like, I'm so busy. I can't do this. I'm so like, I hate being that person. Sometimes it's the reality of it. But then also, being able to come to the conclusion that like work's going to be there tomorrow. You can't complete everything in a day. I've also reached a point in my business where I'm starting to hire out because I can't physically do everything myself. And then that's also going to free up some social time where, because I think the social aspect is very important. I think you need to have friends, you need to go out, you need to do something that is not work related. So just finding that balance. I work when I'm not traveling. I have such a strict schedule where I really try to get everything done Monday through Friday so I can take the weekends off.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But when I am traveling, it's like sometimes, just it doesn't work that way. And you kind of have to make up for days that you took off. That's like entrepreneurship. It's like you don't really get vacation or sick days. So it's just finding that balance. But I really do love like when I have a couple of months where there's no plans, no travel, because I really thrive during that time because I have my schedule, I have my free time, and I just have like more of a balanced life.
And so is it right? Yeah, we all get the same 24 hours a day, and it's where it gets allocated.
Mhm.
And some may put more or less towards a sleep bucket, or more or less to a work bucket,
Right.
or a fitness bucket. Is it a bucket for you that you try to carve out time with? It sounds like the weekends, but
Mhm.
I could also see for some people, depending on how introverted, extrovert, how exhausted they are from the week, that
Yeah.
maybe they carve it out from work, but they're still too tired to get off the couch and go do so because they're like,
Yeah.
look, that week was exhausting. I can't go have a picnic or go on a hike with friends or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Uh, what does it look like for you on those weekends? Are you able, or do you even want to go
Yeah.
engage with people? Yeah.
I mean, I think, like you said, it depends on the weekend. There are some days where I'm just spent and I'm like, my social media meter, even if I haven't seen people, but just being online and being on stories like that to me at the end of the day, like I'm drained by it. And I'm like, okay, I need to just sometimes just be by myself. But I try my best to not like plan something with friends like 2 times in a week. I'm like, okay, I have something this week. Like, I can't do anything until, the following week, which, like I said, I hate being that busy person. But I think setting those boundaries and having that balance is what, works best for me. So I can not only perform best in my job, but also show up in those friendships and be present and not be, where my mind is somewhere else. Like, hey, I'm here, I did it. But like, I'm actually somewhere else because I know I have so much to do. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, finding that, like setting those boundaries is key.
Yeah. And being clear what amount of time you want to allocate to each. So it sounds like for you, it's that one time a week is so that you can be fully present and say, hey, I know I can cover the week, the work I need to get done in this time period because I have this amount of time I can allocate. I could see another reason for it being, which may be you or not. Like for me, I had a week where I was traveling, and so just stacked meetings, coffee meetings, dinners with friends constantly. And I slept 11 hours the night I got home. Because for me, people think I'm an extrovert because I'm outgoing, but it takes a lot out of me.
Yeah.
I find it really, really difficult. And so I could see that being too of like, hey, I know my social meter, I have this many points to allocate.
Yeah.
And if I have a really engaging, 3-hour block on a Thursday night or whatever it is, like that's kind of what I have to give.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. And like I said, sometimes it sucks, like, on the receiving end of things, but it's what is best for you. And that's also something that I've learned as I have gotten older is that, you have to do what's best for you at the end of the day, because you're the only one who's showing up for yourself. And yeah, if you're not whole, how are you going to show up for others?
It would kind of flag potentially for listeners that just like our taste buds change and evolve as we age, right? We like more sour things or better. Our taste in that could change with time too, that maybe there's seasons of life we need more social interaction or less. And so don't necessarily become just wedded to what you've done in the past. Be willing to test and try new things.
Yeah, no, totally. I think, a good example of that is I was in Colorado Springs this last weekend, and I worked so hard during the week to make sure I had post planned. I shot everything, I edited everything, but I had like a 6 a.m. flight on Friday morning. I didn't have time to do the voiceovers, the captions, like set up everything on the back end. And so I didn't post for 4 days, just, a random hiatus. And, I was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. But now I came back, Monday morning. Now I had a whole week's work of work already done. So this week I was like, okay, I can, kind of take it easy and kind of catch up on things and not feel like I just got back from vacation and now I got to like turn and burn. So, it's like, it actually worked out in the long run, which in my mind, I'm like, I can't take these days off. I can't do this, but like nothing happened. Everything was fine. My business is still thriving. I'm still good. And I'm actually, probably more relaxed and more energized because now I have the time to recoup from the social event.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, what you just described just all comes back to that mindset. You got to this mindset through food and nutrition, but it seems to be paying you dividends in every aspect of your life when you can find that personal equilibrium, or how would you describe it?
Yeah, no, I think that's like perfect. The way you said it is just, and it's just like peace too. It's just like you're at peace with things that happen, things that don't happen, and not putting so much, like I said, pressure on yourself to reach certain things. Like it's okay. Granted, it's great to have goals. You have to have goals. I think that's what drives us. That's what motivates us. That's what gets me out of bed every morning is, my list of things that I need to do. But I also love it at the end of the day. And I've come to just find this balance in life because you also like I'm young, I'm 29 and I have my whole life ahead of me. I'm not like, I need to stop rushing life. I need to stop like hurrying up and completing something because there's never an end goal. You never reach the end. There's always going to be something to do.
There's only one end goal and we're not racing to it. Trust me.
Exactly.
So, I mean, like you said, you're very young. Can I ask, I'm not even sure I've asked any other guests this, but do you have a spirituality practice?
I don't. I'm spiritual in the sense that I grew up Christian, believe in God. I'm very spiritual in the sense where I believe like in the universe. I believe, what you put out there is what you get back. I believe in the mindset. I believe if you're constantly having these negative thoughts and constantly like upset, then you're going to attract that energy. So I believe in, I guess, law of attraction as well. Yeah. I went down, like a path of spirituality and all of that, like in high school. And the rocks and the meditation and all of that, but that's not where I'm at in this season of life. But I still I'm glad that I went through that process before. Yeah.
Because that peaceful mindset, kind of acceptance, it sounds, there are a lot of commonalities to Taoism or Buddhism, right?
Yeah.
It's this equanimity that you're trying to cultivate that seems like you came to in entirely your own way, which for me, when you see that, you're like, oh, these things developed by totally different people who never met each other, separated by thousands of years. It's probably a core human truth on this approach to having that peace and being able to carry through the day.
Yeah. What's that book? I think it's called the Atheist. I don't know if but it's
The
about
Alchemist?
Alchemist. There you go. Yeah. It's about spirituality and there's so much about that. So I truly believe that it's real. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Hannah, this has been fantastic. I really, really appreciate not just your time today, but the work you do as a father to a daughter who's coming up in a social media world, having role models that are modeling and sharing what healthy relationship to not just food, but life it can look like. It's a real gift. And so I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. That means so much to me, really. It was an honor to be on your podcast.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Home of Healthspan podcast. And remember, you can always find the products, practices, and routines mentioned by today's guests, as well as many other Healthspan role models on alively.com. Enjoy a lively day.